All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar, and as always, we talk about leadership, especially leadership when it comes to boutique wireless, boutique retail sales, boutique retail locations in general, right? My specialty has been in wireless background, wireless retail locations, as well as AV and appliances. So no stranger to different facets of customers uh, and different styles of leadership and working in different commission environments. Uh, I've been both an individual contributor and I've been on the leadership side in different facets when it comes to leadership. So there's a lot that goes into not just being a leader, but also getting your team to perform, right? That's the hardest part for a lot of people to truly understand and get with is how can we make things easier? Um, and it goes away from the view of you got to do what I say. You got to do exactly what I say. And it's hard for a lot of people to do that because they're so used to doing things in their own manner, their own way, that to get out of your way to be successful is a very difficult thing for a lot of people to do. Um, and I get it. And when it comes to, training up your people, some people think that, if you make things overly complicated, if it's very smart, you'll win. The truth is that's not the case. Uh, Famously, right, there's a quote that says, "You are a genius if you can essentially dumb things down," right? If you can explain complicated um, principles, complicated matters in a very simple layman's terms, where anybody can grasp it, then you are a genius because you're able to break something down. Anybody can complicate things. It doesn't take a genius to make things complicated. It takes a genius to really break things down and bring them down to its core, its basics, right? And that's where the beauty lies. That's where you want to be at. Um, and you don't want your training to be too smart because when it's too smart, it's overly complicated. It doesn't stick. It's not easy to remember. It's not easy to retain. And that's where we lose people is on the retention side. Uh, this is why I'm famously not a fan of, 8-hour data dump trainings. I completely abhorrently am against it because there's no retention. There's nothing to retain from those trainings. It's very hard, very difficult to keep that information and make it usable where you can actually retain the information and get some use out of it for the future. And that's what we want to avoid, right? As a leader, we don't want to overcomplicate trainings. We want it to be as simple as possible so that our people remember the information, remember their training, specifically when they're under pressure, right? Because under pressure means that they're in the middle of the cell. Maybe things aren't going the way that they wanted to. It's not an easy customer. It's not one of those fake, you know, customers that you guys make up when you're doing your role playing where it's that one in a blue moon that's never going to appear uh, customer scenario. Like I'm not training my people for that. I'm training my people for the majority of people they're going to see. I'm training them for that 60% of the time it's going to always work situation. That's where we're focusing on. And I want them to be able to fall back and not have to constantly think and just be able to focus on what they're doing. Let things be normal. Let things be natural. And that's where heuristics come in. Okay. Heuristics, if you guys aren't familiar with the term, it's mental shortcuts, it's psychological shortcuts that we have created as a person to make things easier for us to decide things, right? We don't have to think about it. In a customer situation, for instance, the most common customer situation your teams will run into is when they approach a customer and they're like, hey, my name is so and so, pleasure to meet you, welcome to whatever store. Uh, how can I help? And the automatic customer response is, oh, I'm good. No, you're not. You walked into my fucking store. It's a boutique store. This is not a big box retailer. We do very specific stuff here. You are not just okay if you're walking into my space. I'm here to assist you, right? Obviously, you're not going to say that, but you want to say something to break the heuristic that the client, the customer has created in their mind. They do need assistance. They do need help. That is why they walked into a physical place as opposed to ordering it online because they have questions. They don't know what they don't know. They're worried about something. They need assurance. They want to make sure something works. So break the heuristic. And it doesn't have to be very difficult. And that's where customers and people are very afraid of things, right? We've been trained and we train ourselves that we don't want to be bothered here in the States, right? Other countries are a little bit different, but here in the States, I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to be hanged. Don't do that. Uh, but our people are their consultants. Our people are their advisors. They're there to assist in the process of purchasing what they need to get. And what they might have came in for is not what they would likely need. You'd be surprised how often that happens, especially when you're talking about something that's very boutique, not just in the wireless space, right? Think AV, think appliances. Trust me, I've sold 40, $50,000 kitchen packages. I've sold 30, 40, $50,000 AV setups. What they think they want and what they think they need is different from the reality sometimes. Okay. And that's what we want to help and assist with. And that's where learning about heuristics and helping your team break heuristics is very important. Because when you break those heuristics, you're allowing the actual conversation to flow. That's super important. And the easiest way to break that heuristics, especially that first rebuttal heuristic, is super simple. It's something as simple as, okay, great. What were you looking for? What were you needing assistance with? I'll help point you in the right direction. That's where you want to get to. I used to have this thing at my locations. I didn't care if I was a rep or a manager, where I would give my team the opportunity to walk up to a customer. And I was known for this as a rep all the time. And I always told my teams, right? If a customer walks into our store, if you walk up to them and you just greet them and then you walk away from them, they are not your customer because they're needing assistance and you're not offering assistance. Instead, you just, hey, my name is so and so. You walked off, went on your phone. We're not playing that game. Stick with them through the process. Either you're going to help them or they're going to walk out the door. Those are the two things that are going to happen. And that's what we need to happen. This is a boutique location. This is not a, big box retailer. This is not a mall. Let me know what you need assistance with. Make sure that you're pointed in the right directions. Give you some information that you're going to need, right? Answer some questions that you have, and then we can continue the conversation. Then we can move forward from there. Um, that's where we need to be at. That's what we have to help our people understand and get trained with. It doesn't matter if it's online, right? If they're doing this over the phone or if they're doing this in person. People need assistance, and that's why they're reaching out. So let's figure out what assistance we can offer and be able to point them in the right direction. Okay. Sometimes it'll be as simple as a quick question and hey, it was that, which opens a door for more, right? For more questions, to showcase some other stuff that they may not known that we carried and be able to go on that route. Majority of the time, it'll be something that's actually going to be of service of for the customer and for you as a location. So that's where it's very important to make sure that they're not just, willy-nilly allowing their heuristic to stick and then just walking off because, oh, the customer said that they're not interested or they don't need any help. So it's like, no, the customer doesn't need help. This is what we're going to do. And your team, your people, your salespeople have their own heuristics set up already in place. And it's our jobs as leaders to break those heuristics, just like it's their job to break heuristics that clients have so that we can actually get to the real meat of the issue. Okay. Uh, and the other thing when it comes to you as leadership, right? You also have your own heuristics. So these are essentially preconceived notions. These are preconceived habits that we've built up. Okay, that's essentially what they are. They're not as big as an actual true habit, right? Because it doesn't take very long to break heuristics, whereas with habits, it takes a very long time to rewrite habits. Okay, that's kind of the big difference between the two if you're trying to figure out, well, what's the difference between heuristics and what's the difference between habits? Heuristics are more like the response mechanism. of what they're doing for that specific situation. Uh, and just a simple thing will break them out of that habit, out of that heuristics. Okay. Uh, but heuristics you want to make sure are very simple and memorable rules that they'll be able to use in real time to help them guide them through the interaction, to be able to essentially control the interaction. Okay. Because they have to be able to guide. That's essentially what they're doing with a client or a customer when they're talking to them in person. They're helping guide them through the interaction, through the store visit, whatever, through the online conversation, through the phone conversation. You're breaking those things down, and there's different heuristics in different situations, right? Right now, we're talking more the retail in-person situation, and this is what we want to go with. Um, you don't want them to just be blindly, for instance, pitching things when they're meeting a customer, like, oh, hey, welcome to so and so. We have a great sale today. This is without realizing what the customer is there for. Because if it's something that they're not interested in, they're not there for at all. My concern as a customer is this is my one concern. This is what I'm here for. Once this is solved, or once I have this taken care of, then I'll be open to other stuff. But saying that and teaching your team to automatically just throw the pitch out is going to, you're never going to close anything if you don't throw the pitch. I get where your mindset is coming from, but that doesn't help anybody. That's not an actual training situation. That's not an actual training strategy. That is not a winning strategy. At that point, you're just throwing spaghetti across the wall to see what's going to hit, what's going to stick to the wall. We're not looking for that. We're looking to be able to give our team an edge. The reason why your team doesn't like doing what you tell them to do is because you're not giving them anything of value training wise. You're just trying to throw spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. Just pitch it every single time. It doesn't matter. Just pitch it, just pitch it, just pitch it. No, it does matter because your team members, if you haven't taken the personality quiz, go to my link in the bio, go to the description, take the take the leadership quiz, find out what your personality is. Because your eagles will definitely do it. Okay. Your peacocks, your doves, your owls, they're going to push back. And you guys figure that out, right? 75% of those personalities are going to push back when you say, just do it, just do it, just do it. Just, pitch it every single time. It doesn't matter. Just pitch it. They need to understand what kind of flow. They need assurances, right? So understanding how your team takes in coaching and training is super important as a leader. And ensuring that you make things as possible, simple as possible for them to be able to actually utilize makes it super important for them. And when you go into their coaching and training and developing sessions, and you can personalize a conversation to their style of learning, to their style of being, that's when you're taking things up a notch for them to actually internalize and take that training and make it useful. By creating these heuristics as well within your team, like when this happens, it's what I also refer to as frameworks, just FYI. Heuristics is what I've built my frameworks around. When you make things super easy for them where they can internalize it, they can then not have to think about it. They don't have to do those mental gymnastics of trying to remember when this happens, I need to do this. When this happens, I need to say this. When this, you're reducing the mental load so they're able to just be there in the conversation with those customers, with those clients, and not have to think actually about what needs to occur next. They already know when this happens, this is the likely situation, so this is the route we're going to go. When this occurs, this is the likely situation we're going to want to go with, right? Because really, once they start breaking the heuristics, they're now in control of the conversation. And the conversation is essentially going to go one of two ways, right? Because that's where you're coaching is we're going to go down one of two paths. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to assist. We want to help them. And maybe they're not here for the right reasons. This is not the store they're looking for, right? And we'll give them some information. Boom. But I'm trying to get you assistance. I'm trying to consult on what you're needing. But if you're not, one, going to open up and tell me what you need, there's the door. You got to also let your people know it's okay if the customer doesn't want assistance, right? But we're also not just going to leave them out in the ocean. Give them uber abundance of attention, right? Um, when it comes to, the heuristics method as well, uh, if you followed me on LinkedIn or some of the other socials, you understand that I have this coaching method too, outside of the 15-minute coaching framework, where I teach people how to do what I call the PPO method. The PPO method is position, pitch, offer. And it's a very easy way of being able to essentially pitch a product, pitch a service, pitch a solution. Um, and it walks people through because you would be surprised. There is a difference between a pitch, between a positioning, and between offering something. Most people think they're all the same, but there is subtle differences between them, and they actually all work in unison. So you can position, pitch, and offer something because when you're positioning it, you're now bringing it to their attention. You're showcasing that this could be a solution. When you're pitching it to them, you're showcasing that it is a solution for them. And when you're offering it to them, you're letting them know this is the solution or this is probably going to be the best solution for them based on the conversation, right? And you're asking for the sell at that point at the offer. Not everybody knows that. We'll tell them to pitch. And when we tell them to pitch, that's where we tell them, or we think in our heads as a leader, because we're so used to it, that that's also where they're going to offer it. That's where they're going to do the pitching. And it's not the case, right? Or they're going to do the pitch without doing the positioning. Because if they offer it for them to take, but they haven't positioned it, then there's no value. And then they haven't pitched it, so there is no value. They're just, once again, asking for the sell, asking for the sell. Just, pitch it, just pitch it, just pitch it. You're just throwing spaghetti against the wall. You need to create those heuristics that are going to allow them to walk through the framework process and showcase, okay, this is a good opportunity and this is what we're looking for. We're not looking to train our people on 100% of the types of customer interactions they're going to have. You're looking to train your people on the winning interactions they're going to have, on the ones that are likely to close. Okay. You have different types of sellers, and that's what you want to help focus them on is what are the ones that are going to be the highest chance of closing. For the ones that are going to be a lower chance of closing, there's a different framework for that that doesn't take up the majority of these people's time. That's what we need to focus on. Okay. We want to be front and center on the other ones, but they're not the ones who we're training our people to go after. We're not training them to go after that 1 to 10% of customers that they're never going to close that day, that month, that year. That's where you have to understand where the differences in the types of trainings are going to come from. Um, and when you make things easier as a coach by using heuristics in your training and your development, it also makes your life easier because now you have something that you can consistently coach on and you're breaking it down and you can break it down to the individual personalities that you have, right? You know what the end result you're looking for is, and you know how to be able to have those conversations to get to that end result so that everybody's able to retain as much information and be able to use it. And because it's so simple, it's almost fail proof. They'll be able to use it for success. Because remember, they don't have to see success 100% of the time for it to work. They just have to see success with it a majority of the time. And when they use it a couple of times and they realize how much easier this process, this methodology is by using a form of heuristics and by breaking it down. And FYI, just like you guys are, if you've never heard the term heuristics, you went from I have no idea what the fuck heuristics are to, oh, this is super easy. You learn something that you took away and you're like, oh man, I get that. Your team is the same way. You're giving them an instant win by taking something with a weird sounding name, a heuristic, automatically breaking it down, telling them a heuristic is pretty much just like a habit. It's, for example, a heuristic is when somebody walks in the door and you greet them and they say they're not interested. What do you do next? Oh, okay. So that's what a heuristic, that's what you mean. Yeah, it's just something you automatically do without thinking. Okay, okay. So this is what we want to do. You break the heuristic. You break that train of thought that they have by instead of just saying, okay, let me know if you have any questions. That's what they're waiting for. That's what they need, right? That's what their brain has been, trained to need. So once you say that, it's part of their heuristic. So they're just going to go about their day without thinking about it. But when you say something else, like, okay, great. What brought you in? What are you looking for? They're not waiting for somebody to assist them like that. They're not used to it. So it's going to break their mental frame of thought and actually bring them back into reality and be like, actually, you know what? I do need help. They're just afraid to ask. Boom. You just explained a heuristic to your team. You just made them feel better about something because they know something that other people don't know. That is a masterpiece. And when I realized that subtle piece of information, that little nugget of gold, I was floored. Because to me, it was just like, whatever. I've learned that years ago. I've used it. I know what it is. It doesn't seem important to me. But what doesn't seem important to you could be the world to your team because it's something new that they've been taught that nobody has taken the time to teach them before. This is why I mean it's super important to be adamant about training and developing your team. Because when you go in and you offer extra assistance and you're showcasing that they're capable of more than what anybody else has, showed, and you're actually teaching them little pieces of information like that, it actually makes them far more competent and more confident in themselves because you're sharing something for them and with them that they may have thought somebody else would never have given them time of day of teaching them. Little things like that goes a long way in building that trust and that foundation of assurance that your team knows, okay, this is a leader that's going to be around, stick around, and wants me to succeed because they're giving me little pieces of information that may not seem very important, but are super important. They're the foundation of what we're going to be doing. Okay. Uh, and in that same respect, you broke something down. You weren't vague about it. You gave them an example. It's the same way as when you're teaching somebody and you're going through and you tell somebody, okay, we're going to just build rapport when you're having a customer, conversation with a customer. All right. If you're like most people in the retail space, doesn't matter if it's boutique or big box, you're likely teaching your people to build rapport, build rapport, build rapport. The fuck is rapport to somebody who's never known what that is before? We're used to it because we've been here for a very long time. We know what that is because we've built our careers around that. We built rapport with not just clients and customers, but with also different stakeholders, from our employees, our salespeople, to our field leadership, to upper executives, right? We built that rapport. What is rapport? What are things we can do to build rapport? Now you're going to go in and you're going to break it down. So instead of giving them just vague advice like build rapport and telling them, yeah, just get to know them, give them a strategy to build rapport. Give them direction. So for instance, instead of saying build rapport, it's like, okay, you're going to build, a relationship with them. It doesn't take very long to do it. Use their name 3 times, for instance, in the conversation. Ask what their name is. Cool. That's the first one. You've introduced yourself. Now use their name again and use their name following time. Boom. And you explain the reason why we want to use their name is how do you feel when somebody calls you by your name? When you're in a, for instance, at a party or you're in a large group and somebody says your name, doesn't mean they're calling you, but somebody says your name. They're talking to so and so over there who happens to have the same name as you do. What do though? You turn around. Who's calling my name? People love to hear their name. We automatically turn to see, all right, what's going on? If this person's using my name, it means that they value me a little bit more. Boom. You've given them a solid example. You've broken it down from this crazy, vague thing that they have to try to figure out and do mental gymnastics on how to make this work to now giving them something solid to use. That's important as a leader, breaking it down and using it. Instead of saying like, all right, you just need to handle objections better. What does that mean? What, as a leader, what do you want me to do? All right. So instead of just taking the first objection, right? Or, you know what? You having, a little bit of trouble getting over objections. I've heard you. You try to overcome it, right? I've heard you. You're trying, you're moving in the right direction. Try this next time. Ask 5 questions before offering a rebuttal, right? So instead of trying to overcome the objection, ask him 5 additional questions. Why would I want to ask him 5 additional questions? Because maybe one of those questions or the additional questions you ask is going to help the customer, help that client understand that, oh, I'm objecting to the wrong thing. I actually don't have an objection. Or, it's not that I have an objection, it's just it's out of my budget range right now. There's nothing wrong with that. That's where we want to get to. That's where we want to start getting our teams to. And that's part of the training. When you do trainings and you start developing your people with having heuristics in mind, you're giving them clarity and you're giving them confidence. Because once again, you're going from vague, vague, vague to clarity, to specifics, to what builds confidence. Because now they can see themselves, they know what actions to take, and they can start practicing those actions. That's where we want to get to as leaders. That's where we want our teams to really focus on. Okay. Uh, the other thing when it comes to breaking things down, simple and having simplicity, simplicity is scalable. Simplicity is repeatable. Once again, anybody can make anything complicated. It doesn't take a genius to do that. Why the hell would I want something to be complicated if I want 5 other people to also be able to do this? If I want 10 other trainers, if I want 10 other coaches, if I want 10 additional leaders to be able to do the exact same thing, why do I need to overcomplicate it? Make it simple, make it repeatable. And that's what you're doing. You don't have to go over the top crazy, like, this is what we got to do this, 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 this. Make it simple. Less is more. Okay. And you go from there. Because when you do less in the training sessions, you're focusing more on the actions. You're focusing more on the actual results. Um, and you're able to keep the messaging consistent. You're able to keep the language consistent by not overcomplicating what you're saying, by not overcomplicating the message. That's the important aspect. That's where we want to focus on. Uh, and if you're wondering, well, how can I use this in a training next time around without being too crazy if I'm still trying to practice, I'm still trying to kind of find my footing around like coaching and training and development. It's simple. Think about simple heuristics that either you have innately in yourself or that you've seen, right? Like I said, one of the easiest to see and spot is when either you walk into a store or you're working with a customer, and the first question that you're asked is, "Hey, how can we help? Welcome to whatever. How can we help today?" And your automatic response or the automatic response you hear is, "Oh no, I'm good. I'm just looking. It's fine." Like the other day, for instance, me and my wife were out shopping at the grocery store to pick up some stuff. Made some bomb carnitas, by the way. I can talk about that a different day. Uh, but there's some guys that right by the checkout stand, selling energy, and it's like, okay, first, I don't have a need for a different energy company right now. Maybe I could use a different energy company. Maybe I could save some money. I don't know. But they're like, hey, who do you guys, quick question, who do you guys have for, I was like, no, we're good right now. It's like, we're in an environment where I'm like not interested in having that kind of conversation because it's like, okay, you're there because there's a bunch of people and you're trying to find somebody that I have no idea, first off, because I'm walking from the back and I can't see the sign. So I don't know what it is. And there's no like messaging that I can see that would be relevant to me based off the company I'm using for electricity. If you guys aren't aware, in Texas, it's not like we have one electric company that handles everybody. Um, it's pretty much all broken down. There's a bunch of different companies. So, for instance, like the Houston market, I think there's like 10 to 15 different companies or something like that. The rural places are a little bit smaller where they might have only one or two options. But that's what I'm saying. Like it wasn't relevant. My heuristic was I don't want to be bothered right now. I just want to check out so I can go make these bomb carnitas at the house. That was that. That was my heuristic. His heuristic was like, okay. I was like, all right, cool. Right. I kept walking. I didn't stop. And that's where we're training our people as well. Like there's heuristics that you can break, heuristics that you can't. But it's a two-way street because they have their heuristics and you have your own heuristics built in. So if they say I'm not interested and you say okay, let me know if you need any assistance. Whose heuristic won? Theirs did because you didn't try to rebut. Boom. If the guy had said, well, right now, if you have X company, we typically save them X amount of dollars, maybe that would have caught my attention, right? Because obviously nobody likes paying a lot for electricity, is what it is. Um, but heuristics and breaking heuristics, it really is about creating a connection with the people you're talking about. It's not about being right the whole time. It's about building those connections. So when you're training and developing your own people in your own sessions as well, that's where we want to focus on. So for instance, I'm not a big fan of like who wants to come up and, it's like, all right, so this is what we're going to do. Boom, boom. You guys come up. This is what we're going to practice. The reason is nobody wants to be called on, right? When they put their hands up. If you're asking for volunteers, it's very rare that you're going to have somebody who wants to actually volunteer. So their heuristic is I'm not going to volunteer. So when you just say, well, okay, we're not going to take volunteers, we're just so and so up here. This is what we're going to do. Boom. That's where we go. You're breaking heuristics to get more buy-in. You're breaking heuristics to get more interaction. That's what you're doing. Uh, and that's where we want to go. So your next training session, don't micromanage, right? Coach your reps, coach your sales leaders to coach and train and develop their people. And start by understanding simple heuristics. Big three heuristics that you might see. Doesn't have to be you specifically. You can do break down the story and you can ask for three that they have seen in the last week. You're gonna get three. I guarantee it. And then you can have those discussions and you can start working through creating that training and development. And if you're wondering how can you make the training and development process easier, go to the link in the bio, go to the description, grab the 15-minute framework, super easy one-page sheet that walks you through being able to do an effective coaching in as little as 15 minutes. So guys, as always, I want to say thanks again for stopping in to another episode of Sales Manager Academy. I'm Omar. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Send me a DM if you guys have any questions. Don't forget, hit that like and follow button, and I'll catch you on the next one.